Good evening. Welcome to our webinar. We're excited that you're here, and we're going to give you some good information tonight that I think your family would benefit from. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that all of our Free Will Baptist families have access to this information. Give you a little bit of history on this. About 13 years ago, it became apparent to the foundation and to the denomination as a whole that we needed to have some kind of estate planning program in place. Because let's face it, we want to keep the government out of our family business. So we need to put some things together, and unfortunately in most states, everything needs to be in writing so that we can make sure that our wishes are followed and make sure that what we want to have happen actually happens. And so at the foundation, our goal is to help you coordinate and put together a plan, implement that plan so that your family is protected. We're going to talk about that theme tonight, about protection, and it's something that everybody typically is interested in. So over the last 13 years, we have helped to date about 2,600 families around our denomination, pretty much most of the states we work in. And it's been amazing as we've walked through this journey. We have met so many of our church members that said that, oh, I didn't realize that I had an estate. So that's the first myth that we want to talk about tonight. Everybody's got an estate. It doesn't matter if your estate is large. It doesn't matter if your estate is medium. It doesn't matter if you don't think you have an estate. Everybody has got something that they want to protect. And, you know, we all love our kids. We want to make sure that what we want to have happen actually happens. So basically, we have about, let's just kind of say, what are the reasons that we need to have an estate plan? Other than keeping the government out of our business, let's ask these questions. So why do I need an estate plan? Number two, what plan is right for me? And number three, how do I implement that plan? So let's start with the why do I need a plan? Number one, I think we need a plan to protect our family and our loved ones. We want to make sure that we're not throwing them to the wolves, so to speak, because once you're in the arena of that, it can be very, very confusing. So we want to make sure that we're protecting them, and that's the theme we're going to be talking about tonight. We want to eliminate any unnecessary delays or costs. And that, like right next to that, you could write the word probate if you want, because probate can be a very big expense. It can be a long delay in many people's cases. Not every case, but in enough that we need to make sure we address that. Number one, we want to control the distribution of our assets. You've worked your whole life for what you've got, and we want to make sure that it ends up going where you want it to go. And then lastly, we want to avoid guardianship if we become incapacitated. And I want to spend just a moment on this. We're not just planning for when we go home to be with the Lord. We're also planning to make sure that if something were to happen to us, that our wishes would be honored. And I'll tell you a brief story in my life. Our lives were changed April 10th, 2005. My 17-year-old daughter was on a boat at Lake Allatoona, Georgia. The kid driving the boat didn't know what he was doing. My daughter was flipped out of the front of the boat. The propeller took down the left side of her body. It was a nightmare situation. Long story short, when we were in the hospital, fortunately, we were able to make decisions because she was only 17 years old. But a lawyer from our Sunday school class was sitting with us, and he said, Mike, thank God that Katie was 17, because had she been 18, she would have been a legal adult. And I looked at Scott and I said, what do you mean a legal adult? What's that got to do with anything? He said, you can't make decisions for any other legal adult in America unless you have something in writing called an advanced medical directive. And I never really even stopped and kind of thought about that. And that's when he said, you know, if this was your wife, if she was in that hospital bed, you would not be able to make decisions because you guys don't have any of the correct paperwork in place. And that's when it really hit us that we needed to have kind of a comprehensive estate plan. And so when the dust settled, we went out and did that. And I'm going to talk about the different plans that are available to people in our denomination. So when we talk about what plan is right for me, you basically have about 3 plans or 3 ways that you can do things. Number 1 is you can do nothing. Now this is the easiest plan to put in place. Don't do a blooming thing, because everything will get handled after you pass away. And if you don't like your children, this is a great plan. But at the end of the day, most of us don't want this to happen. The do-it-yourself plan or the do-nothing plan is really counterproductive. Because if you don't have something in place when you end up either becoming incapacitated or if you pass away, then that whatever state you live in will dictate the plan that you have. And typically that will be a will, and when there's a will, there's going to be a lot of different moving parts to that. So doing nothing is probably not a great option. The other issue is that I get people that will say, well, Mike, how about I just put my kids' name on everything I own right now? And maybe some of you have done that. And let me caution you about that, because there's really 3 problems with that. Number 1, if I put my child's name on my house and I want to go sell my house, whose permission do I need? Right, I need my child's permission. Now they'll probably give it to me, unless maybe I'm older and maybe they don't think I've got a right good going around sense, so that may be a challenge. The other issue is liability. If my son's name is on my house and my son gets into an accident on the freeway and God forbid there's a death in there and we're sued, is my house now at risk because my son's name is on that house? Very well could be. And then lastly is kind of a tax situation. The moment you put somebody else's name on your house, you establish basis. And I'm not going to go into a huge tax conversation right now, but suffice it to say that your children could be facing a big capital gains tax if their name was on the property while you were still alive, and then when you died they went to sell it. The government has already established basis. And this is something that we can talk about, and I'm going to give this number a couple of times, but if you're interested when we're done, feel free to give us a call at 615-760-6152. That's going to be the number at the foundation. You can just call, leave your information, and one of our people will get back to you and we'll discuss things a little bit more in depth. But that do-it-yourself plan or do-nothing plan is really not a great idea. The second way that you can protect your estate is kind of the most common way, and it's called a will. Now, a will is simply a series of instructions or directives that you leave for those that are left behind. Now, the problem in most states is that wills typically end up in a process called probate. Probate is the judicial application for the distribution of your estate. Typically, a judge is going to be in control of that. And anytime you get the government involved, things are going to take a little bit longer. There's going to be costs associated with that. So probate is probably one of the things that most people want to avoid. And obviously, it doesn't address things if you become incapacitated or anything like that. So a will is, again, probably a way that many people are familiar with in putting your estate plan together. Now, I'm not saying that wills are bad. If you don't own any real estate, if you have no children, if your estate is maybe below your state guideline, and that's all over the country, they're all over the page there. Some states, in Georgia, for example, is $10,000. North Carolina, I believe, is $40,000. Or maybe it's $20,000. But the point is, whatever your state's guideline is, if you're below that, then a will probably would suffice for you. But again, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you about that. We want to give you this and minister to you. Our goal is not to get everybody in the world to To do this, our goal is to give you the information so that you can make a wise, intelligent decision on how best to protect your family. Now, the third way that you can plan your estate, and this is what I've got, is called a revocable living trust. And I know many of you have heard this term. Sometimes it's just called living trust. But a revocable living trust is simply a legal entity that you put together with the help of an attorney, and that attorney will write this trust. And the trust now becomes the owner of all of your stuff. So my wife's name is Sherry. So in the Mike and Sherry Wooten Trust, the trust became the owner of our real estate. Now, some of you are asking questions like, well, I've got a mortgage on my real estate. That's okay. We're just deeding the property to the trust, and that's what keeps it out of probate. The advantage of having a trust is just that. Anything that's protected by the trust, think of an umbrella, anything that's protected by that trust doesn't end up in the probate system. So things like bank accounts and stocks and bonds and mutual funds and different things that would comprise your estate are now owned by the trust, but you are the trustee of the trust. So at that point, there's no loss of control. You'll still make all of the decisions. And truth is, while you're alive and healthy, you don't really notice that you have a trust. Where a trust really shines is when you become either incapacitated, you go home to be with the Lord, and then all of those assets that are protected by the trust are distributed to your beneficiaries, to your heirs, without the need for any probate. And I know that there's many of you out there that are like, well, I think I would like not to have to stick my kids in that government process, that probate process. And that's how Sherry and I felt. We wanted to make sure that our children weren't burdened or saddled with that, because typically somebody that you love, a child, needs to shepherd or chaperone that will through probate. When you have a trust, you don't have to do that. There's not judicial control over that. And again, these are becoming very, very popular. They used to be, in many cases, cost prohibitive. But at the Free Will Baptist Foundation, we put together a plan that allows our people to put together a revocable trust at a big discount off of what you could go and get it on your own. We have Christian attorneys that we're working with. And again, the whole idea is to minister to our people and make sure that your family is protected the best way that they can be. So those are typically the three ways that you can protect. You can do nothing at all, which we typically don't advise. You can put together a simple will, or you can have more of a comprehensive estate plan, which would be the revocable living trust. I know that some of the people have sent questions in already. One of the big questions was, do I lose control of my stuff if it's under the protection of the trust? And the answer is no. You still are in control because you are the trustee of the trust. Now, I want to touch on one little thing because I get this every time we speak. What's the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? Some of you have heard those two terms. Typically, about 95% of us, maybe more, simply need a revocable living trust, attorneys tell us, because we could do pretty much everything we need to in that. And revocable, just like the word implies, means that you can change it, you can tweak it, because we know that things change in our lives. Children are born, people pass. At the end of the day, we need to understand that we might have to make some changes into that. So a revocable trust allows that. An irrevocable trust does not allow that. There are not changes that can be made. Typically, they're done for a very specific person. Usually people that have high net worth may utilize something like that. But at if you have questions about that, I'm going to give you that number again, 615-760-6152. You can give us a call. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And the nice thing about working as a ministry, We're not out to try to make money on this. This isn't something that we're like, well, how much can we charge people to do this? Matter of fact, we're trying to keep the cost so low so that every family can have access to this. I hope that makes sense to you. That's what our heart is. We want to minister to our people. This isn't about making money. It's about how do you protect your family? How do you have somebody that you can trust? I want to also touch on a couple things that are unique to Free Will Baptist. Once you put this trust together, and it's a big document about that thick and a big binder, you might look at it and go, what do I do with this? Well, part of our program is that on about an annual basis, we will have a communication with you. We'll touch base with you and see if there's any changes that we need to document, because there may be something that's come up. Now, you're free to call us as often as you like, but at least once a year, we're going to reach out to you just to make sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. Then the most important thing we do, which is actually the real ministry part of this. Everything leading up to this point is preparatory work. But when you go home to be with the Lord, we will come out, we'll sit down with your family, your spouse, and make sure that everything's working right. Make sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. We'll actually come out. Now, sometimes it's easy enough that we can do that on a phone call, especially on what we call first to pass. But when we go second to pass, that gets a little more difficult. One of us that's trained to do this will actually come out and sit down with your kids, sit down with your family, and we'll pull out the trust. We'll go through everything. We'll get everything set up the way it needs to be done to help them distribute everything and make sure your wishes are on it. You typically can't get that from just any old attorney. That's the stewardship process. That's the ministry process that we want to do. We're not going to leave you by yourself. We're going to make sure that once we get this in place, that somebody's with you every step of the way. FYI too, just so that you could put kind of a comparison on this, if you were to go out into your local area, and let's say you were going to do a will, you would end up spending somewhere between $700, maybe $1,000 to kind of put this together, maybe $1,500, depending on where you live, et cetera, et cetera. Now that's for the attorney to draft the will. At that point, once it goes in probate, attorneys tell us it takes about average across the United States about 12 months, actually anywhere from about 9 to 14, but we could kind of target in at about 12 months to work its way through that probate process. Now, one caveat, that's typically second to die, because in most states, if a husband and wife have a will, they own everything together. So the first probate is relatively easy or easier. But when the second person dies, that's when the full-blown probate kicks in. And within that, say, 12 months, 14 months, there's going to be about 40 hours of billable legal time. Now, we all know that the average attorney bills about $325 an hour, but even if you just said $300 an hour, if you had 40 hours worth of work, that's about $12,000 that did not go to your children. It did not go to your favorite ministry. It ended up with a bunch of lawyers giving stuff to your kids. And again, let me say this, I have no problem with lawyers. We have some very, very good friends that are lawyers, but the bottom line is we think you can give your stuff to your children less expensively than a lawyer can. I hope that makes sense. Now, on the opposite side of looking at a revocable trust, that's an inverse relationship. Normally, if you were to do a revocable living trust, if you were going to go out to a local attorney that specialized in trust, you would see typically between $4,000 and $5,000 to put something like that together, but there's no money on the back end, typically. So I know I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I know that when we would look at this, anywhere from $5,000, $4,500 was about the going price. Now, there are some states that are much higher, and there are some states that are a little bit lower. The point is, when you put that cost into there, and you say, well, I'm going to spend a little bit more up front, but I'm going to spend basically nothing on the backside, many people think, well, that's a great deal. But what the foundation did for the denomination is we ended up putting this program together, and for all of our church members and their family members, it works out to $2,700. So that $2,700 is the entire program. In other words, you're not going to spend more with a lawyer on top of that. That $2,700 covers everything. That covers the attorneys to draft all the documents. That covers us coming out and delivering the documents to us, doing the yearly reviews, and then doing the death settlements when we need to. So if you're a husband-wife situation, there's a much greater value to be able to allow the foundation to help you do this. And I hope that makes sense to everybody. That's what the 2,600 families that have done this with us so far have done. So, and then some of you watching may already be clients of the foundation. Some of you aren't, but even if you're a client, you maybe want to tell your brother, sister, mom, dad, aunt, or uncle. So at the end of the day, we want followers of Christ to be able to have access to this knowledge. Now, let me touch base on what the experts are saying about this. You don't just have to take my word for this. The experts are saying a revocable living trust allows heirs to avoid probate entirely and keeps you in complete control of your finances while you're alive. That comes from Susie Orman. Fiduciary Trust International said that creating a revocable trust probably the best way to ensure your property remains available to you and used for your benefit. And then AARP, the magazine, wrote, a revocable living trust is an incredibly powerful document that can be a big help. So I want you, and if you're going to do some research on this, again, give us a call. There's probably nobody better suited to be able to do this. I've been doing this for about 17 years. I've worked in the secular world, have worked in the ministry world, and we want to make sure that Christians understand this. Because oftentimes, and let me just go off on a little bit of a tangent here. Oftentimes when you're in an after-death situation, after everybody's left, and it's 30 days down the road or 60 days down the road, and bills start coming in and questions start coming in, you just don't know what to do. It's just a very unique situation, and knowing that you can call the foundation and we're going to be there for you is something that gives a lot of people a lot of comfort. So we really hope that we are going to be the right people to help you do this. And again, sorry about that. And again, this is something that everybody's got to do. State of Ohio says you got to do it. State of Tennessee says you got to do it. State of Georgia says you got to do it. At the end of the day, we all have an estate, and we need to make sure that that plan is in place to make sure that that is covered. So I'm hoping that people understand this. I've got a couple of other ideas that I wanted to talk to you about, and these are 10 steps to help protect a spouse. Many of you watching maybe have already lost a spouse, or there's stuff in the future that may be coming down to. I want to give you some practical tips, and you probably want to write these down. Number one, you need to gather your financial papers, things like deeds and stock certificates, insurance policies. Make sure that they're readily available. Number two, make a must-call list. Everybody, when this situation occurs, a lot of people don't know who you want called or who you want notified. Make that list. That's going to help your family a lot. This is a big one. Share your passwords. We live in a digital society today, and a lot of people don't know the passwords, and that could be a real problem for folks. Make sure you update your beneficiaries. If you've had a situation, we've had this happen in Free Will Baptist families where people forgot to update their beneficiaries, and things that would normally not go through probate ended up in probate because the beneficiaries were not updated correctly. So that's a good one. Make sure you check your credit cards. You want to make sure that those are taken care of. You want to set up those advanced directives. Now, if you choose to let Free Will Baptist Foundation help you, we will get those set up inside of your plan. Inside of a revocable living trust, we've got powers of attorney, medical directives, advanced directives, deed transfers. It's the whole shooting match. So we want to make sure that we have those. And again, we'll help you do those. Designate a money person. There's probably somebody in your family that's really good at dealing with that. You want to make sure you designate that. Make sure it's in writing as well. You want to review any wills or trusts that you have in place. Now, if you're one of our people, we'll review that with you every year, so you don't have to worry about that. But I can't tell you how many times I have gone into somebody's house and they have a document that's 20 years old that's not been looked at, and it's not even pertinent anymore. So let's make sure you review those and update those. And discuss your funeral plans. I know these are tough topics, but make sure that the people you love understand what you want done in those. And then for spouses, make sure that you know how the bills are paid. In many family situations, one person pays all the bills and the other one didn't know how to do that. I'll give you a case. I was in East Tennessee, and a lady had called me. Her husband had passed away. They were our clients. We went out, sat down with them, and she was phobic that she was going to lose the house. She didn't know how to pay for the house. Well, once we got in and we started pulling everything, the husband had paid the house off years ago. So she had nothing to worry about, but she didn't know that. So make sure that people are up to date on all of those kind of things. All right, do we have a question? So let's see. I have a question here. Does the revocable living trust protect your property if you have to go into a nursing home? The answer is no. A revocable living trust, because you still have control of the assets, the revocable living trust does not protect that. Now, I will say this. If that is of a concern, there's some other things that we can do. We can talk to the attorneys. There are some steps that each state mandates. North Carolina, for instance, is a great state. It's the only state that if you have a revocable living trust and your home is in it, it does in fact protect it from a nursing home, or technically it protects it from a probatable estate. But our North Carolina attorney can focus on that with you as well. So great question. Do we have any other questions? Well, I see the one about the irrevocable trust. So again, we want to kind of stay away from those. But the answer is call us. You've got somebody that you can trust, that you can call us, and we'll spend the time it takes to make sure that your family understands what you want done. So one more time, that number is 615-760-6152. I'm very honored and grateful that you tuned in to this webinar. In fact, you're part of history because this is the first one that we've done. We think we're gonna be doing more of these because we can get this information disseminated out to people in a much easier basis. Now, many of you have seen us come to your church. We're still going to be coming to churches. If we get a chance and an invite, tell your pastor to have us come out. It'd be an honor. Doesn't cost anything, and we'll be happy to teach this live. But for those of you that are on the webinar, call that number, and we will have somebody get back in touch with you. We'll get your questions answered. We'll give you peace of mind that you maybe don't have right now. And so by the grace of God, we thank you so much for tuning in. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We always covet your prayers. Please continue to pray for this ministry. Let's pray for our denomination. Let's pray for our country. Because at the very most, Christians are the wall basically between the world, and we just need to lift people up in prayer. I know I need your prayers. I know our family needs our prayers. So thank you again for coming out here. enjoyed my time with you. Call us. We're happy to help everybody in the denomination. God bless you and good night.